So, how many times has someone said to you, do not worry? If you're really in a stressful situation and you're in some kind of distress, um, this kind of advice can be really upsetting. How can I stop worrying with all these things going on in my life? And so we might feel a bit annoyed with the Apostle Paul, for example, when in his words from our text today that was read in Philippians, it's like telling him, it's fine with you, Paul, because you lived in a day where life was a lot simpler. But is that really true? Um, our world, for example, today is is in a second wave of a worldwide pandemic. Here in Canada, our jobs are more demanding of us, and the stress is unbelievable. With unemployment, there are dramatic changes in how business is conducted, and even our jobs are not certain anymore. Look at the family pressures that we face. It's getting harder every year, especially this year during the time of COVID, to raise families. There are household job loss, there's income decline, and there's the caregiving burden and mental distress for kids. So we have banned social gatherings altogether and major music, recreation, and sports events. The church has lost its in-person meetings and ministries like visitations, and mostly are done online. The kids no longer have after-school programs and sports and music lessons, and they're doing most of this online now. And so look at the temptations that threaten our teenagers. There's social media and the cyberbullying that is aligned to that, and also online bullying and cyber sex. And so they are tempted to live some kind of um, uh, drug related or alcohol related addictions. And so, how can anyone not worry? You might say to yourself. But even Paul, during his time, lived a very complex life. And so, some of you might think this is a strange topic for us today, Thanksgiving Sunday. But if how can any of us be truly thankful so long as we are in a worry mode? Maybe that's why Paul linked the word worry and thanksgiving in the same sentence. And um, basically, he's saying, do not worry about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your request be made known to God. So perhaps the place to start today is to start preparing for Thanksgiving weekend by doing something to get rid of our worries. With that in mind, let's start by just mentioning some of the things, some of the anxieties or worries that can our energy, and making it more difficult for us to express gratefulness and thanksgiving. So, for example, there's a couple of anxious parents whose teenage child is acting strangely, and they're worried that he might get into some kind of depression. Or think of a young man with high ideals who's expected by his boss to be involved in a practices that he knows are unethical. Or what about the middle-aged person with a family who has just been told by the doctor that he or she has COVID or has a terminal illness? Or over here, there's a young student, for example, who's weighed down by the stress of online schoolwork, compounded then also by the demands of stay at home parents, not giving them their space. These lists of anxieties are almost endless. And some, of course, are our own making, others beyond our control. But when worry dominates our lives, friends, how can anyone say to us, do not worry? We've got plenty to worry about, and all these worries make it so hard for us to be truly thankful. Nevertheless, Paul says, do not worry and be thankful. So, how do we do this? How do we accomplish this? I would like to share with you three ways on how prayer can help. Number one, prayer helps put things in perspective. Paul gives us the first clue when he says, but in everything by prayer and supplication. So prayer is probably the most underutilized tool in the Christian arsenal. Prayer is not some quaint activity employed by Christians to make worship services more interesting. And it certainly shouldn't be something that we employ only when everything else fails. So, for example, like two men who found themselves in a field with an enraged bull. As soon as they saw the danger, when they saw the bull, the two men started to run toward the nearest fence. But as the bull was gaining on them, the one terrified man shouted to the other, "Say a prayer for us, John. It's the only thing that will save us." So in reply, John said, "I can't. I don't know how to pray in public." "But you must," implored his companion. "The bull is going to catch us." "All right," John said. All right. I'll say only the prayer I know, one my father used to say." And with that he said, "O Lord, for what we are about to receive, make us truly thankful." Praying when all else fails. Now, it's not really what Paul is talking about here, but rather he's talking about prayer as we direct link to the power and presence of God. When we use prayer to connect with God, then prayer becomes the most effective method that we have to deal with stress. Prayer puts things in perspective. Just as an artist working on a canvas has to step back from time to time to view his handiwork from a distance, so you too and I can stand back occasionally from the hustles and bustles and the confusion of our lives and look into our lives from God's perspective. Friends, prayer gives us the